Hi, I'm Nihal Chamberlain, Massachusetts President for Bank of America. Recently, our company committed an additional $100 million to organizations across the country, many of them right here in Massachusetts, like Lovin' Spoonfuls, an organization that is helping fight hunger by distributing fresh, healthy food to those in need. We're proud to support this year's Chef-a-Thon and our broader communities. Now enjoy the evening alongside one of Boston's finest chefs.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ashley Stanley. I'm the founder and executive director of Lovin' Spoonfuls. I want to welcome you to this night's edition of Chef-a-Thon. I am super excited to kick things off with my friend and one of our culinary board members, Jamie Bissonnette. He is the chef and owner of Toro, Copa, and Little Donkey here in Massachusetts, and he's been a terrific part of the organization for such a long time and has had so much to offer and does so much to support our work. We're really excited to have him doing a cooking demo and to chat about some things that are going on in the world right now. We're also excited to welcome Rob Phillips, who's the bar manager at Little Donkey, and he's also been an incredible supporter of Lovin' Spoonfuls for many, many years. He's going to be doing a cocktail lesson and a cocktail pairing for us related to Jamie's workshop. I want to thank everybody for their participation. If you're new to the Spoonfuls family and the Spoonfuls Network, thank you for joining us for this virtual event. And when things go back to something, I look forward to meeting everybody in person. I want to thank our sponsors for this series, Bank of America and Little Leaf Farms, two incredible organizations that have been supporting our work and food rescue in general for a long time. Lovin' Spoonfuls, as you know, is a nonprofit based right here in Boston. We take food that's otherwise being thrown away and we upcycle it into the social service stream. We work with almost 250 partners, distributing 17 million pounds of food over the last 10 years. We feed 30,000 people each week and rescue and distribute about 75,000 pounds of food each week. Our work is incredibly important, and at this time, unfortunately, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic are going to last much longer than the virus itself. So at this point, we are here trying to make sure that we stay in business, we can stay in service to the community, and we can continue working. And thanks to you, we're confident that we can. Thanks for joining us. Have a great time tonight.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Jamie Bissonnette, the chef partner of Toro, Copa, Boston, and Little Donkey in Cambridge, Mass. Thank you very much for participating in the Lovin' Spoonfuls Chef-a-Thon. We'd love to have you in person. You know, it's a lot easier for nonprofits to raise money when you can all get together and celebrate things and feel good opening up your hearts and your wallets. So hopefully you will today. But this pandemic, it's been hard. You know, it's closed some restaurants, some permanently. It's been a change. Everybody keeps using the word pivot so much. I think I'm going to go with pirouette and call myself a ballerina for the rest of this. But Lovin' Spoonfuls, they haven't been complacent. They haven't been sitting by the wayside. Since the COVID has started, since this pandemic, they have still rescued 1 million pounds of food and been able to distribute it to the 160 partners that they have in the greater Boston area. That's pretty wild, considering everybody else is growing, you know, quarantine mustaches, putting on the quarantine 15, and learning how to make sourdough bread. Hopefully tonight you guys have a little bit of fun with this recipe. So we are making a quick and easy pasta with things that most people have around the house or variations thereof. So let's jump into the kitchen and I'm going to show you some of the ingredients. We're going to use some rescued pasta. That's just some good old rescued Lovin' Spoonfuls style spaghetti. And then over here, we have some San Marzano canned tomatoes. I always encourage people to buy whole tomatoes and crush them yourselves. It's a little bit messier, but you're gonna get a better quality tomato. A lot of the tomato companies buy the crappy tomatoes and put the crappy tomatoes in the crushed or chopped. So, you know, get the nice ones. We're gonna leave them whole and I'll show you how to do this really quickly. We have some canned white beans. Awesome staple to have around. They add a ton of fiber. I think this is 26% of your daily fiber, so you're gonna want that. Here for some interest, we've got some canned clams. These ones are Potomar clams. These are an awesome conserva from Spain. one of my favorite conservas. That means, you know, basically fancy, more expensive canned shellfish. So if you don't have that, you know what? Let's look up here. If you don't have that, you can look and use any kind of conserva you want, whether it's, you know, we have yellowfin tuna or just generic canned bonito, anything like that. Whatever you have. You could even use just generic run-of-the-mill, generic brand canned tuna. Don't be fussy. But I encourage you for this, you want to get either spring water or oil packed. We have some fine cut carrots, we have some scallion bottoms, and we have a little bit of celery, some scallion tops for the end, some onions and garlic. So that's the only onion we had, so we're going to use red, and we only had 1 clove of garlic. So I'm going to show you guys my secret ingredient, powdered garlic. If you don't have any other fresh garlic around or you're too lazy to peel it, it doesn't substitute for everything, but it does have a great use. All right. So first we're going to start off and we're going to make a really quick tomato sauce. We're going to start off by turning our stove on. So I have an electric stove. Yeah, I know. You would think that I'd have a gas stove by now, but you know, I'm still a kid. I'm not an adult. But a lot of people get, you know, I can't cook on an electric stove. I can't monitor the heat. I say, after you've cooked on it for a while, you're going to understand what's going to be boiling. So we've got our boiling back. And now here I've got this turned on medium-low, and I'm turning this one up on high. And then if I need to, I can turn the back one on low. That way, when you're cooking, if you're not happy with your pan temperature and you want to keep cooking, you can move burner to burner for your heat adjustment. You don't have to keep fiddling with the knob because that's wicked frustrating. We're going to start off pretty high up on 6, and we're going to pour in a bunch of olive oil. And I mean a bunch of olive oil. Some say don't cook with extra virgin olive oil, it loses its flavor. That may be true, but the texture is so important in a great pasta. So we're going to start getting that warm, and we're going to add some red onions. And then as soon as I add the onions, I always add a little salt, and that'll help pull out some of the moisture and give you a sweeter onion. The garlic clove, I'm just gonna smash it and throw that in. I like getting a chunk of garlic in the food when I'm eating it. I love working with wooden spoons, so you're not breaking your enamel if you're using metal, or melting if they're rubber. And since it's an electric stove, you can actually leave it in because now it's not going to get burnt. So as that's warming up, I'm going to just throw in a piece of celery and some scallion whites. So I always have scallions around because I can keep them alive on the counter if there's not room in the fridge, or keep them alive in the fridge by just putting them in a little bit of water. And the bottoms are a great addition for texture and fiber. And I know the onions haven't cooked yet. I'm just going to add the carrots now. So the carrots cook, helps get you a little bit more vegetable into your meal, and it also adds a nice texture and sweetness. So right now, think of this as flavoring your olive oil. And it's going to start to fry. Now, I'm taking a page out of my little donkey book rather than my Copa book, even though we're making pasta today, because we're going to kind of stir fry this. And by that I mean, we started off medium, and as it started to get high, we cranked it up. Now this is ripping hot, and we're just going to kind of fry it until the onions start to get soft, moving it around so it doesn't burn. We'll start with a little bit of pepper. Not too much now, otherwise it'll get spicy. Although if you were going to make a carbonara or a cacio e pepe, that's like the greatest way is to toast your pepper in the beginning. So, one of the things that we've been doing to keep really busy during the pandemic at home, when we have the time, is keeping busy by cooking, right? So I've been thinking a lot about the recipes that I've demoed and done before, and this is something that we actually fell back on quite often. We didn't go to the grocery store. It's easy to just run to the grocery store for a last minute thing normally, but now if there's a 25-minute, 30-minute line to get in, a 30-minute line once you're inside, that's why going to the cupboard for canned tomatoes and canned seafood is a great way to cook during a quarantine. So the onions are starting to get fragrant, the scallions are starting to break down. I know that my pasta is going to take about 10 minutes, so I'm going to let this cook for a couple more before we drop the pasta, but this is going to be that quick. So pinch of chili flake to let that bloom. And now we're going to add the juice from the canned clams. So the clams in the can look like this. We just sliced them up so they'll be nice bite size. And we're gonna add them to, like, much closer to the end so they don't get chewy and they don't overpower the flavor of the tomato. So we've just cooked out a little bit of that canned clam juice. It smells pretty awesome. We're going to add a little bit of these white beans. The white beans are great because, well, if you don't want to use canned seafood, you can just do this with legumes. And it adds a little bit more sustenance, a little bit more texture, so as you're eating it, you're going to feel fuller, quicker. Now, let that warm up. We're going to add the tomatoes. So we add the tomatoes, and we're just going to let them kind of warm up. We're not going to break them up, and we're going to leave them whole just for a little bit, and then we'll chop them up. That way they don't break down too much. They'll stay fresher, because when you buy really nice canned tomatoes, it's awesome when you can really taste the flavor. So as that's going, we're going to start the pasta. So for our pasta, we have some boiling water. We're going to add our salt now. I always add my salt towards right before I drop my pasta. That way I don't forget about it, let it reduce and become too salty. A lot of people argue on how salty they want your pasta. There's no right or wrong way. Whatever you do that you like at home, that's the right way. So just keep doing that. I set a timer for 9 minutes. This box of pasta said that it needed 10 for al dente. I like to be the judge of when a pasta is al dente, not a timer. So I set it a little bit earlier than what the box suggests. That way I can check it and monitor it myself. You want to make sure that your pasta is going to fit in a pot without having to break it. So as I put this in, I can kind of go back and forth, and we'll let it slide in. But you don't want it to be so big that it doesn't collapse into the water as it gets warm. So now we hit start on our timer, and we're just going to check this periodically to make sure that it's cooking. For efficiency's sake, we're going to put a lid on it. So now if we take a look in here at the tomatoes, you can see everything kind of bubbling and cooking. I'm going to taste it. There's a good amount of salt coming out of the clams, but I still think it could use a little bit more, so we're going to layer some more salt. And now we're going to take this. This is a great tool. This is made by my friend Adam Sema from MKS Designs. He usually makes knives, but this is his wooden spatula. It's beveled, it's cornered, it's more things than I can even, but it's great for breaking up tomatoes. So if you don't have one of these, you can also use a tomato masher, but for me, this is perfect because it's kind of like dicing it in here. And if you've ever diced canned tomatoes on a cutting board, you realize that all it does is get all over your socks. Now you can chop this up as much as you want. I personally like to have, for a pasta like this, I like to have the chunks of seasoned tomatoes. So we're not going to go too fine. This is going to kind of almost look like a stew by the time we're done with it. And that's why I like using a string pasta. So it can kind of live and swim around in it. And just really pick up the flavors. So again, we're still on high, seeing how that goes. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder to this now. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder to the stove too, since it's not seasoned enough. And we're going to taste again. This is starting to taste really good already. I'm going to add a little bit more garlic powder. And just a pinch more salt. And now we're going to check on our pasta. Boom. So we look at our pasta. You want to make sure you're stirring it so it doesn't clump up. It'll start to look almost like the spaghetti's wearing a belt, and the bottom are like a million legs and the top are like a million arms. You don't want that. There's probably a name for that in Italian that I don't know. But I'm sure somebody on the internet will be more than happy to correct me on that. Alright. We got about 6 minutes left on our cooking pasta. I'm actually going to add the rest of the beans and a pinch more chili flake. I like it spicy, especially on the hot summer days. Hot food, spicy food helps me cool off. Here we are. We're getting to that point now where I'll add one piece of clam in there that I didn't cut to show you what it looked like just for fun. And the other ones we're going to put in. And again, if you don't want to use clams, if you want to use canned salmon, canned sardines, mackerel, tuna, you totally can. I just thought that razor clams would be a great midsummer dinner for us. All right. Looking again. I always say there's no such thing as stirring spaghetti too much when you're cooking dried spaghetti. Fresh spaghetti, on the other hand, you'll break it up, but good dried spaghetti, no problem. I'm going to put a little bit more olive oil in now so it kind of starts to emulsify in, and then we'll add a little bit more olive oil and a little bit of butter at the end. I know a lot of Italians tell me that you should never put butter in pasta. Some Italians that you can put it only in certain ones. I'm from just outside Hartford, Connecticut. I just put in the stuff that makes it taste the best for me. So if you want to get mad at me on the internet, stop getting mad at me on the internet. Thank you. This has been great. I hope you guys are having fun. I'm really excited because this is the most cooking that I've done for somebody without having a mask on in the last couple of months. It's a lot easier to breathe, and I don't feel bad about tasting the food. So you can see these big bubbles are happening. That means it's starting to caramelize. So I'm going to cut the heat, but since I know that the electric heat's not going to cut, I'm going to go to the front where that one is. So where that one is set down towards low, so it'll slow down rather than just completely stop, but it'll still keep cooking. So we're going to finish this pasta with a little bit of Parmesan, and then something that I have in the freezer that I pulled out for today is a cured Sicilian tuna heart. So it kind of has like an earthiness to it, adds like a little bit of salt and umami. I think it's great. I love the way that it works together with the Parmesan in this particular pasta. So now bubbles are nice and even. We know it's just staying hot. We'll check the pasta again. Now if you look in here, if you can get in to see how the pasta has plenty of room to move around, and it's boiling at a nice rate, but it's not like boiling so much that the pot looks like it's going to explode. It's not sticking together, which is pretty cool. I always prefer that. And now we're going to do the classic test of how to see if pasta's done. We're just going to break it and look at it and see if it's done. It's not done. It's very hard. When I was a kid, my mom or somebody told me that if you threw it against the ceiling and it stuck it, then it was done. I have no idea if it was true, but at least once a year I think about doing it while I'm cooking pasta. All right. So we are pretty close, and we're going to bring this over into the sink, and we're going to drain the pasta and get it to finish cooking in its sauce. So I'm happy it's got about 2 minutes left of the 9 minutes. That means it was only 7. But that's okay. So we're going to dump this here in the sink. Now, under the colander is a bowl. And that bowl is here to collect that water. So the greatest thing about straining the pasta in the bowl is we get all that beautiful pasta water we're going to be able to add to this for flavor, salt, a little bit of starch, texture, and that'll help us control how the pasta is in the sauce. So we're gonna add all of that pasta in. And that looks like it's way too much pasta. Maybe not. So now we're gonna move this pasta back over to the hotter burner. And we're just gonna let this cook. And the pasta is gonna continue cooking in the sauce. We're also gonna add a little bit of the pasta water like we talked about. I'll keep that back there so it stays nice and warm. There we go. So now we're just gonna cook this pasta till the noodle is completely cooked through, which is gonna be very quickly. The seasoning on it is great. We're gonna add a little bit more olive oil and a little bit more pepper. And for good measure, just a pinch more garlic powder. There we go. It's really starting to pick up some of the texture and the flavor from the sauce. You can see how it's still a little bit wet. So we're just going to let the pasta cook for about another minute or so. We could spoon some of the sauce over the top of it. And this is the part where we say, okay, that celery that was in there to help flavor the oil, we probably don't need it anymore. We can take that out. If you want, the celery is nice to just slice up. Kind of chop up, we can throw it right back in. All right, this is starting to look and taste great. So we're gonna add just a little bit of butter. Like I said, a lot of Italians say you don't put butter in it. I like the way the butter helps the noodles cling to the sauce. And I just think it tastes pretty damn good. We'll let that kind of settle down. Then we're gonna add a little bit of cheese. And I think cheese and seafood together is like soy sauce and clams, which nobody else knows what it means but me. It's great, it's umami. It has a nice texture and a nice flavor. And I don't like rules, so if somebody tells you that seafood and cheese don't go together, let them have their opinion. We're going to give us a little bit of the tuna heart as well. And there we go. You can see that pasta is really picking up all the texture and flavor from that sauce. Here we have our scallions, just the tops cut pretty thin. And that's just to give it a little bit of freshness and herbaceousness. And now we're ready to put it on the table. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys had a good time cooking with us. We gotta go. Pasta's hot. We're gonna pour some wine and have some dinner. Thank you for supporting Lovin' Spoonfuls. Everybody remember, Ashley is the coolest person you'll ever meet in your entire life.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Stoked to be hanging out with Chef Jamie, making some fun cocktails, and most importantly, supporting Lovin' Spoonfuls. So for cocktails today, we're going to be working with peaches, delicious in the summer, For this recipe, it was inspired by spiced pickled peaches, so we're going to work that into a cocktail. Sounds a bit weird, but it'll make sense as we go. So typically they're spiced with things like cinnamon and clove. Today we're going to use a spice blend called harissa. You typically might find this in a paste form, but you can also get it in the dried spice blend form. This I just picked up at Whole Foods. You can find it at most spice aisles at grocers. Super jam-packed with flavor. I grab for it all the time when cooking, and it just think it would make sense with these peaches. You have things like paprika, caraway, chili pepper, cayenne, coriander, cumin. It's just jam-packed with flavor, and it has a little bit of spice as well, so super good. To turn these peaches and the spice into a syrup, we're going to need some sugar. And then to turn it into a shrub, we're going to use some vinegar. Classically, pickled peaches use apple cider vinegar. Here we're going to use rice vinegar. I find that it doesn't fight with the flavor of the peaches as much. It's a little bit subtler of a vinegar. And yeah, it just works well. You want to make sure that you pick up the sodium-free and sugar-free and not seasoned rice vinegar. They're usually right next to each other at the grocery store, so you'll be able to see the difference of the one that is labeled without any seasoning. For the last ingredient, we have some fresh basil. Basil, also very summery ingredient, absolutely delicious. For this recipe, we're going to be using the stems and everything, so we'll have that all together. The stems all too often get thrown away. This is something that we do at the restaurant a lot between the kitchen and the bar, is make sure that we utilize all of our herbs. Some people might get concerned with the stems adding too much bitterness to a syrup or a shrub. But just keep in mind there'll be a fair amount of sugar that will counterbalance any bitterness from that, and they're just super flavorful. So a good way to reduce waste there. So these are going to be the base ingredients that we're using. Let's get into prepping them. The recipe for the shrub should be sent out to you. What you want to do in order to get yourself prepped and get this ready and make it easy as possible is to just get all of your non-perishable ingredients measured out first. That way when you start to slice the peaches or prep the basil, you run less of a chance of those oxidizing, most specifically the peaches. So here I have a pound of sugar measured out. It's about 2 cups. Have a tablespoon of the harissa measured out. A cup of rice vinegar covered, because otherwise I would make a mess and spill that everywhere. 15 grams, stems and all, of the basil. And then let's get our peaches prepped over here. You're going to need about 5 medium-sized yellow peaches for this recipe. Okay, so about 4 3/4 peaches later, we have the 1.5 pounds of peaches that we need, thinly sliced. Have them in a baking pan here, and you'll see why in a minute. First thing we're going to do is sprinkle the harissa over the peaches, and just distribute the spice evenly to get all the peaches nice and coated. So just from up top, kind of season the peaches, if you will. So the layers we do this is very important. We have the harissa on here. Now we want to add the basil. So like I said, 15 grams, stems and all, and this we're just going to tear, right? Just tear and kind of drop that on there. In the same way as we did with the harissa, try to evenly distribute the basil. And now we're going to add the sugar to that. So this is the pound of sugar, and the reason why we added everything in layers is because the sugar is essentially going to eat at the other ingredients. And so I want the sugar to break down the basil, hit the harissa, and then chew through the peaches, right? And the sugar is going to pull out the moisture and juices from the peaches and get everything kind of mingling together and incorporated. Perfect. Okay, now we're just going to cover this up with some plastic wrap here because we have to let this sit in order for the sugar to work its magic on the rest of the ingredients. This is kind of like a marinade. The longer you let it sit, the better. The more juices from the peaches it's going to extract when we come to blend everything together. The smoother the whole mixture will be. But at the very least, you want to do this for a half hour. Okay, I had prepared one in advance so we didn't have to wait so long for the sugar. And here it is. This is the same amount, it's just in a bigger pan, so it's spread out a little bit more. First and foremost, you want to add the water. We want to get the water hot to make the sugar dissolve faster, so we're going to get a 1/4 cup of hot water. All right, I just heated up some water in the kettle. You can heat up on the stove top, just a 1/4 cup in. Doesn't sound like much, but you'll see once we start mixing everything together how liquidy it is because of the juice extracted from the peaches. So that maceration or that period of the sugar sitting on top of the rest of the ingredients is really important. Now we can go ahead and add our vinegar. Rice vinegar, 1 cup. And then one other ingredient is just a pinch of salt. So again, just like with the vinegar seasoning, the shrub, a little bit of salt in any syrup that you're making really just seasons the cocktail that you're making. All right, and then so just mix everything together. Make sure that vinegar is incorporated with the rest. And you should be smelling the spices. The basil is really strong. Now that we've added the vinegar, you definitely get that like sour note in your nose. And now it's time to blend this all up to really get the most out of the peaches. So I'm going to take this over to my blender and just buzz it up until it's super smooth, and then we're going to strain it a couple times. So once you have it all blended up, you want to go ahead and get yourself a fine mesh strainer. If you don't have a strainer like this or similar, you can just use a strainer with a wider mesh and just line it with coffee filters. You're going to pass it through this, use a rubber spatula or whatever to strain out the pulp. There'll be a decent amount of pulp. That's just going to be waste. And then if there are still some finer particles in the shrub, you can go ahead and use your fine cocktail strainer to go ahead and strain it again. When I did it, I ran it through this and then ran it through this as well. All right, so after I strained it, I went ahead and put it in a bottle. You can keep it in a quart container. I like to keep it in glass. Any leftover bottles will do, that's sealable. So after your painstaking labors of making the shrub, you should yield about 3 cups of shrub if you follow that recipe, and that'll last you a while, or at least it'll be stable for a while. How quick you drink it is up to you. So let's make some cocktails with it. My first choice to pair with this is rum. So here I have this beautiful rum from Privateer. local rum distillery up in Ipswich that just makes fantastic products. If you're not familiar with Privateer, highly recommend going to grab a bottle of any of their rums. If you are familiar, then you already know we're in for a good time. So let's start out with the shrub. Get my shaker tin, jigger. I'm going to add 3/4 ounces of the shrub straight in. And then typically for sours, you're either going to use lime juice or lemon juice. Chose lemon juice here for the same reason that we did with choosing rice vinegar over apple cider vinegar. It's going to fight less with the natural acidity of the peaches. And because we do have vinegar in here, I'm only going to do a 1/2 ounce of the lemon juice. Fresh squeezed lemon juice, very important. I squeezed this right before I poured it in here. Just got it bottled and ready for you. And then we're going to do 2 ounces of our Privateer rum. Straight in. Great. So before we get to making this cocktail with ice, I want to go ahead and get our glass ready. For the glass here, we're going to serve this up into this nice coupe. And for garnish, we're going to do a harissa salt rim. So this is 1-to-1 harissa to kosher salt. And we want to do that on half of the rim, in case whoever you're serving it to doesn't like the added spice. But this is a great way to kind of customize a cocktail, even if you're just using a standardized recipe. If you drink out of the side with the harissa salt, you'll obviously get some more salt, but you'll get some added spice as well, in case your guest wants that. And now we're just going to add ice to our shaker tin. Small one. Seal this guy off here. You want a straight line here, or straight edge here. Flip it over in a nice hard shape. Right, you want to shake it for about 12 seconds, or as soon as your hands start getting frosty. Get your glass ready, and since we're serving it up, we're going to fine strain the final cocktail, get rid of any ice shards from when we shook it nice and hard. Alright. Add a little bit more to this by just adding a basil leaf. And there you have it, a harissa spiced peach and basil shrub riff on a daiquiri. Cheers. One more application I'm going to show you here with the shrub is a non-alcoholic soda. Shrubs are delicious with some carbonation. So again, we'll just prep our glass. And I'm using this salt rim on all of these. I just think it's really nice. It's beautiful. It's aromatic, and it adds some flavor if you want it. All right, great. All right, and this one's much simpler than the previous ones. We're just going to add our ice in first. That looks about right. Add soda water. I'm using Fever Tree here, but whatever you have for club soda. And you want to go ahead and add a little bit of your carbonation first. That way when we add the shrub and the lemon juice, it starts to incorporate automatically. The carbonation kind of force feeds it to the top. So we're going to do 3/4 ounces of the shrub. Starting to see a pattern here. And then a 1/2 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice. and then some more soda water. Right, and you can see the distinctive layers, but since we have that carbonation at the bottom originally, we just give it a quick stir with a reusable straw, and you have an incorporated non-alcoholic soda that is very delicious. Here, we're going to add a basil sprig. Again, you just want to activate the oils, and you want to put it as close as you can to the straw. That way, when someone goes to enjoy it, their nose is right next to the aromatic basil leaves. All right, cheers. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and supporting Lovin' Spoonfuls. I hope you get a chance to make this shrub. It's super delicious. It'll last a while in your fridge. Here are some examples of ways to use it, but please make it your own. Let us know any recipes that you make. Didn't really give any of these a name because ideally I want them to be places for other people to spin off of. So go ahead, have fun with it, and I hope you enjoy. Cheers.
Hey, my name is Jamie Bissonnette. I'm the chef partner of Toro Copa Restaurants in Boston and Little Donkey in Cambridge, Mass. I've been working with Ashley and Lovin' Spoonfuls since the first night market event. I don't remember what month it was, but it was 2011 with Mayor Menino and Ming Tsai. It was at Myers and Chang. It was the first time I got to meet Ashley, and it was friendship at first sight. Turned into love eventually, but at first it was just friendship. And I've been a part of Lovin' Spoonfuls ever since.
Yeah, 2011 seems like so long ago.
So does 2019 right now.
So does February of 2020.
It's
I can't
crazy.
believe this has been, this morning I was thinking about it. This has been 5 months of where we are. And it seems like it's like there's not a lot of progression. And I remember talking to like you and Will and Colin right before. And how did you guys, or I guess how did you and Ken start thinking about what the plan was going to be? How did you guys respond to knowing that things were going to start shutting down? What were those conversations like?
Well, we decided to shut down even before Baker advised this or mandated that we all shut down, but only by about 12 hours. So we saw something was weird, and we knew that was something that seemed so infectious that it was the smart and safe thing to do. And then we took a couple weeks of not doing anything, not even takeout, to just see what we could do and what was going to be smart. And in doing that, we started working with feeding some frontline hospital workers. We kept feeding our staff. And eventually we started opening up for takeout at one of the restaurants at Copa. Then we opened up takeout at Toro. And then as phase 2 started for outdoor, we opened up our patios. And that's probably where we're going to stay for a while, just at least until we know a little bit more about it. And it's been crazy because we're so used to being able to go, boom, let's do that, and it's done, or call this, or like, let's get this, or let's jump onto prep. We don't usually have to do lobbying and meeting with people from the government. It's like, I've never been this stressed out in my life. I've never been this busy in my life, and I've never been this confused and lost.
I hear you. I think we're all there in some ways, and I feel like you guys are literally, there are new like restrictions and limitations and guidances that come out, and it's sort of like having to figure it out every day, like a day at a time, just to survive. And is it trying to keep up with making sure that you guys are doing what other restaurants are doing, or are you guys totally sort of focused on what's working for Copa and Toro and what works for the group?
You know, with trying to figure out what to do, obviously, yeah, some nights Ken and I are both driving around different neighborhoods, seeing what patios are doing that look successful. We've learned a little bit of what to do and what not to do, but we've got a great community of chefs that we can all like send a group text message out and say, what is everybody doing for this? How do you guys problem solve for Y and Z? And it's been very helpful. And every day is different. If we open up on a Monday for the patio, Tuesday is different than Monday, Wednesday is different than Tuesday. And, that was in June. Now it's July, and July is different than June. Hopefully August is different than July. And right now we're just fighting for survival. One of the things people think is, oh, restaurants have patios and you're allowed to seat people inside. They're going to be fine. Well, we've lost some of the best months of income and sales for the restaurants. And now people are gone and the spending habits are not the same. I wouldn't expect them to be either. So we are trying to figure out how to stay alive, with getting our landlords on board to support us and help us with rent breaks has been great. Getting loans from the government and SBA have been great, but it's not enough. They gave us the PPP loans were an 8-week solution to an 18-month problem. They extended that, but they didn't give you more money. So it's extending how you can earn forgiveness of the loan and turn it into a grant, but it doesn't help you with cash flow. We're operating at under 40% of what our normal volume would be with outdoor dining. And on a rainy day, that goes from being a busy regular restaurant to nothing, to just takeout. And when we do takeout, restaurants profit 10 cents on the dollar. When you're doing takeout, we're paying the takeout company apps like
Right.
30 cents on the dollar. So if our profit's 10 cents on the dollar and we're paying 30 cents on a dollar, do the math, we're losing money if we're just doing takeout. So it's very difficult.
I remember Colin was saying, I think last year or the year before, we were talking to Billy Shore of No Kid Hungry, and Billy had asked Colin to break down the profit on a plate and how it works. And I was so blown away I know the margins are small. I know the lines are thin. I had no idea they were that thin, and those margins were so small to begin with. So in order to be dividing up what that number is now to those delivery apps and trying to even just sort of meet the need for folks who aren't going to come in, I don't know how you guys are doing it.
We're not. We're treading water. We're not even swimming. If on a great year we're profiting 10 to 12 cents on the dollar, right now, without factoring in any of that, we're already not making money. We're breaking even. So just to stay relevant and have the revenue coming in for delivery apps, it's problematic at the least. And it's hard because landlords have different issues. Landlords have loans, they have taxes.
Sure.
It's not fair to assume that your landlord can just sit around and not collect money. That's just not how they're a business too. So they need help. Our landlords need like a tax break or something, like a rent relief bill from the government, and we need more help. If the Restaurant Act does not pass, we are not going to make it. The restaurant industry, it says there was a Yelp survey that came out that said that 53% of restaurants in America are closed permanently from COVID. I don't want to be another statistic. Yeah. I don't. We already closed Toro in New York during this because we just couldn't make it. We couldn't make it work with rent and not being able to be there, and we just don't know what to do now. So call your senators, tell them you want to help. Call your representatives and get a hold of people in Congress. Make a lot of noise, because if you like us and you like hanging out with us and you like supporting us, we are going to need your help, because without it, the only time we're going to be hanging out together is in the proverbial unemployment line.
Well, we will make sure that we mobilize our network and get everybody who's tuning in to watch this, all the numbers, everything they need. It's really making us think. I mean, I think about the way that you and I work together. You've done so much for not just Spoonfuls, but really any organization that comes knocking on your door or Ken's door and says, "Hey, can you help us with a dinner? Hey, can you help us raise money for the animals, the trees, whatever it is?" And you guys are always the first to say yes. And now we, as a community, are in a position to figure out what we can do for you. And when we think about what the communities are, they are based around food. I mean, that's why Love and Spoonfuls exists, but that's why restaurants exist. It's what you
Yeah, I
guys
mean,
love to do.
we're a big part of the economy. When you think about what our profit is, that means that 90 cents on the dollar that gets spent at a restaurant is going out to other people. It's going out to a liquor company. It's going out to a produce company, perhaps a PR company, although sadly not right now. It could be going out to credit card processing fees.
Yeah.
It can be going to landlords. It's going to employees. It's going to our trash pickup. It's going to farmers, and it's going, everywhere. Linen companies. We're by us drowning, we're bringing down a lot of other industries with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Restaurants are truly, truly at the heart of what makes a community run. I can't remember what I was listening to, but somebody was even saying, especially in different parts of the city where people rely on restaurants for light, for movement, for safety. It's such a big part of what the community needs to really stay solvent and together and sort of aware. And when the lights go out and things go dark, folks start to feel unsafe and alone in really real ways.
We saw that. I mean, that happened over by Toro in the South End. We were closed for over a month before we started doing takeout and delivery again, and we saw an influx of graffiti, crime. The streets were dirtier. When we started to reopen, our neighbors, wow, we really noticed how the neighborhood, isn't as safe with you not here. And it wasn't just us. It was also the fact that, Mike City Diner was closed and Sayo was closed. Barleone was closed. It's not just us, but if restaurants go away, then we're gonna have neighborhoods that are gonna be problematic.
Yeah, and Toro was such a big part of what's been going on in the South End for so long. You guys have been there, what, 15 years?
December 9th, Toro's going to be 15 years old.
Gosh.
And I mean, that's great, but it's also scary,
Right.
It's a scary time. And, we're already starting to see people etching the tombstones of the restaurants that aren't going to reopen in Boston. And it's sad, it's really sad.
What's it like to I mean, you've sort of seen the restaurant renaissance, I guess, for Boston in the last 20 years or so. And you've seen it really starting as cook, executive chef, owner, restaurateur, especially now with COVID. What do you think of all this? I mean, even just seeing how Boston has grown and the restaurant scene has grown, how are you experiencing all of it?
Having spent so much time coming up to Boston my whole life, for whether it was going to a Red Sox game or going to see a hardcore band at the Rat, the Channel, to see these neighborhoods go from being kind of sketchy and like run down, like Kenmore Scare, to having Eastern Standard and, Island Creek and even Great Bay when it first opened up, it was fantastic. And, to be reading about chefs like Jasper White and Tony Ambrose and Lydia Shire when I was a kid, and then being in Boston and like slowly getting to know them and do events with them, and then working with guys like Mark Arfali and getting to know Ken Oringer, who's my partner now. It was like, to me, it was like a kid just like living the dream. It was like I felt like a young kid who wanted to be a baseball player who all of a sudden realized that they were playing baseball in the major leagues, and it was just great. And now it's frightening. It's like it's all going away. It's all feeling really, really uneasy, and it's nerve-wracking.
What is COVID revealing about the industry, or at least the food system, that you might not have noticed otherwise, or that might not have revealed itself in an urgent way?
I think, having some time to look at everything right now and hearing and connecting with chefs around the country and restaurateurs around the country, whether it's on, the IRC calls that we do a couple times a week, or the MRU, which is a local Boston thing that we do a couple times a week, realizing the disparity in earnings and how one fair wage is really something that we should all be moving for was important. And I always knew. I mean, I lived paycheck to paycheck until I was in my 30s. I never had a lot of money. I was always nervous, and I can empathize with people right now who are, you work in a restaurant. It was like, oh yeah, I want to work at that restaurant. I know I'm going to work 60 hours a week, but that overtime is what's going to make me earn enough money to live in Boston. Now the restaurants really can't afford it, and we're seeing it's just hard. I mean, I don't even know how to put it in words to see how the people who have depended on this industry are just struggling. And it's not just our levels of restaurants, it's the diners, and, it's not just Boston, it's around the country. We need to perhaps take a really good look at the systems that we have now and say, hey, this is the time to change it. This is the time to say, screw it. Let's shake things up, and let's make this more equitable for the employees and the workers of this industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that moment is so powerful in so many ways, because we're at the intersection of COVID and the intersection of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, looking at what is truly essential and how disproportionately affected communities of color are in terms of the inequities that exist in our society. And restaurants have such a huge role to play, but for some reason, the ability to achieve that one fair wage has been challenging, because the work just hasn't been valued in the same way, even though they're considered essential.
Right. You're right. I mean, it's also wild because when everything is moving so fast and restaurants are busy and the economy is normal, making that kind of change is harder. There's going to be more resistance. That's why I say right now is the time to do it. Right now is the time to do away with tipping, to create one fair wage. I mean, there's no other more astute way of putting it. It's I mean, the word that I keep using right now is sad. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that what we're going through deserves mourning. And we need to mourn a little bit, because things are not going to be the same. It's not going to, I don't think in 2021 even, definitely not 2020, but I don't think I'm going to do another stage dive, at least until I'm 45 now. It's a couple years.
We got to start working up to that right now. I mean, the effects of everything that's happening right now in that intersection will be around long after COVID comes and goes, or there's a vaccine or whatever it is. And in terms of sort of the social moment that we're in, I don't want things to go back to the way they were. I mean, we're doing some real soul searching at Spoonfuls about how we've built our company and how we work to try and bring and provide equity into the community. How do we go back and really start investing in some of that development within the company? And it's sort of like, now, you're right, now is the time to really hit pause on all of that sort of big movement and big progression, and look at what needs to be done and what hasn't been done. It's scary stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say, try to find a positive through all of this, with all the death and all the anger that's happening right now in the world. But perhaps there will be something that we can get out of this that will feel good in the end, though it doesn't feel good right now. at all.
No, I can imagine it's scary. I mean, I get scared for you guys, and you know, we've gone and we're just starting to get our feet wet and start making some reservations. You know, we've been doing the takeout thing for as long as it's been available, and I think, you know, Kelly and I always sort of ask each other, we're like, you know, how do the servers feel? How do the cooks feel? How do the hostesses feel? I mean, you guys now are sort of the ones almost, you know, on that front line dealing with whatever is coming at you. And Katie's doing an amazing job. We passed Toro the other day and right on the mask thing and making sure that it stays consistent. I mean, how do you guys feel internally about having people back? Aside from wanting to see people and all of that, does it feel safe internally?
You know, what we're doing in the restaurant is very similar to what our friends who are doctors in ICU and ERs in Boston are doing and they're having direct contact with people that they know have COVID. You know, we're washing our hands, we're wearing our masks, we're being smart, we're not allowing people to congregate. You know, we're doing is the best that we can. It feels as safe as it can, I think. And every day we talk, we say, what happened last night that wasn't good? How do we fix that? You know, and sometimes it's me being at Copa, standing there when a guest, do we freeze?
For a hot sec, but you're back.
You there?
Yep.
Okay. So sometimes it's even like for me when I'm at Copa, and I don't know what it is about masks where people wear them and they walk up to a restaurant and as soon as they get to the maitre d', they pull it off to talk.
I know.
And I'm that guy standing at the door who says, "Pardon me, sir," or "Pardon me, miss. You're supposed to, you know, the mask is supposed to be on for what you're doing right now. You're interacting with a human. So if you're going to get close, you've got to have the mask on. I'm really sorry." And most people are like, "Oh my God, you're right. I've got such a bad habit of it." But some people actually get mad. You know, they get upset. And that's the frustrating part, is that I didn't know that health could be partisan.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we went out the other night and we're sitting on a patio and, you know, our masks are on unless we're like shoving food into our mouths. And the guys sitting like across the way from us, we never saw their masks. And there was a part of me that was, I mean, Fauci said it, right? He's like, "I don't know how to make you care about other people." I can't understand how folks who are coming to a restaurant to have the experience, to support the restaurant, to eat the food, to try and get all the things that we love back about this whole thing, and they're not understanding that literally sitting at a table does not change the fact that COVID is still here and that there's a server who's protecting them, and they're not internalizing that.
I mean, I've been out to eat a couple of times. I've been to Bar Mazzana twice. I've been to Uni once, and I've eaten at Copa. And I can tell you that 99% of the guests, as soon as they sit down, the masks are off. And the only time the mask goes back on is if they're going inside to use the restroom.
Yeah.
So I implore people, if you are out there eating in restaurants and you are not putting your mask back on at your table, I can't make you. But when a server comes over to speak with you or an employee comes over to speak with you, at least go like this so you're not spitting on them. Please. Just wear your damn mask. It's important.
Amen. I feel like we could cut it there and leave that as like the parting words.
Yeah. You know, right now we're in a polarizing time, and we all have a lot of time to inflect on who we are personally, professionally, who our businesses are, who we are for our communities, who we are for our friends, who we are for strangers. And if you realize right now that you're not happy with something that you used to do, or you're realizing that you want to evolve, just do it. Live in the present, live looking for a better future, but don't dwell on the past. You can become a better person. You can do better. So if you weren't feeling positive before this and you're feeling like you want to take a stand on something now, take that stand. Do it. If you want to start meditating and be a better person for you, do that too. If you want to cook at home more, cook at home more. But look for something that you can get out of this that's positive. We've got more free time than a lot of us have ever had. Read a book. Do something to expand your mind. But don't just sit around and dwell and say, oh, I'm just going to kill the time and hopefully things will get back to normal. Because as Ashley said earlier, I don't think things should go back to normal because normal wasn't right. Now we're going to be able to take this time to evolve. It's not the best way to do it, but you have to deal with the cards that you're dealt. So let's turn it into something positive. Change yourselves. I know that I've changed mine, and let's do it together. And wear your fucking mask.
And if anyone's wondering why this guy is one of my best friends and has been involved in Spoonfuls for so long, it is that. It comes from that heart, from that mind, and that spirit. Jamie, I love you. I miss you. Thank you.
Oh, shit. Thank you.
So that was awesome. I want to thank both Jamie and Rob for their participation tonight. Thank you so much for supporting our work and giving us such great workshops. This was so exciting for all of us. So thank you both. I want to again thank our sponsors one more time, Bank of America and Little Leaf Farms. Thank you for supporting our work. Tonight, if you feel particularly moved by anything you've heard, by anything you've learned, and if you want to continue to support the work that Love and Spoonfuls does, please go onto our website at www.loveandspoonfulsinc.org, and you can find ways to support us there, make a donation, figure out how to get involved with our volunteer network, and really stay a part of our family. So to everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for joining us.